I'm serious, Serda. You probably don't care, but I don't know how you're dealing with this, BK. But the Royals have clearly completely taken over
Dude, yes.
my entire April and March and now May,
Yes.
and like I was befuddled for like an hour after they blew that game the other night. And I said, my God, I've got to get a hold of myself. I sat in the chair and went over that entire ninth inning. Like it was just, and I'm like, it is May 7th. What am I doing? All right, I see it's sticking. I want to come clean before we get into this one tonight, fellas. Just so you know, you all aren't thinking anything. I'm not wearing any underwear, and so
I didn't know where you were going with this.
I'm just I was wanted to right off just be
And
very clear.
you got pants on, right? Like
Well, that's pants.
I'm wearing basketball shorts right now. It's
Yeah,
like
I got on pants. They're salmon, but I'm not wearing any drawers, and it's something that I've really kind of gone to. Like it's been a couple of times. It's been an accident. Oh, at the gym. But I'm telling you, I'm 2 or 3 times a month now where that's just where I am. It feels very comfortable and freeing. Not with jeans, of course, or any zip up type of a deal. No denim, but uh,
you
but
just do it at
I
the
like.
house, or you're going in
Oh no,
public?
I'm all day, all day.
Good for you, man. Good for
This
you.
was all day. I was doing a show at Twin Peaks today. No draws,
Oh, there you go. There you
all
go.
day. Yep, felt good. Now it was 90 today, so that was almost fun. But
Would you say it was a success?
I love it. I don't know why. It's freeing. It's
That's
just it's
feel like
it. Like
you're cutting a little close there. Just asking for a disaster at Twin Peaks.
Those did look like some short shorts, man. Given the context of what's
well,
on
I
under
yeah,
you.
I like the 7. I like the 7-inch down. I like them above my kneecap, and
Hey,
they're
there's nothing wrong with that. You know, just the combo is, as Serta said, kind of dangerous.
yeah, you're right. Like, and sometimes I like to kick my feet up, and they slide up a little bit, so there could be some danger, but we're fine. We're fine. We're fine. But I just wanted to be very clear and let you know where I am, and I didn't want to be hiding anything from you guys. But yep, no draws here. So I think the three of us, there are 2 pair of underwear on rolling on here. I mean, unless you guys have a surprise, I'm not sure. But can we get into this kid Rashee Rice? Now, I don't know if you heard the latest. The latest here that I've heard is through the police report that this nut, and they used the phrasing, lured this photographer back into a club and had his people tell him to meet him in the back, as this guy was thinking that he was going to be taking photos, talking about work of some sorts. And then he told the gentleman to look down at his phone for DM messages he sent him. And when the young man looked down at his phone, according to the police report, he was punched in the face by Rashee Rice, swelling to the side of his face, non-threatening injuries, but clearly we know what else Rashee Rice is involved with, in which he is already under the spotlight with the car racing issues he had in Dallas. Now he adds this to it, and I'm gonna say this to you. I want to say right off the bat, and either one of you disagree with me, please chime in. First, I want to say right off the bat, like there doesn't need to be topics or conversations about if the Chiefs are going to move on from him or should. They're not moving on from him. We know the Kansas City Chiefs, and we know these Kansas City Chiefs. All right. If he can be productive, which he definitely can, he is the best wide receiver on this team. That Joker, they're going to find a way to keep him loaded on the team. We've seen this before. So I don't think he is getting kicked off this team. But I am concerned with all of this because I could even chalked up the racing thing, fellas, to a, all right, man, that's something that young 24-year-olds that are think that they're invincible do. I could chalk that up. What I cannot chalk up to young and 24 is, yo, I'm already in a whole lot of trouble with this. I'm maybe facing 8 games of a suspension. Yo, let me go get some guy, a photographer. Let me lie to him and bring him back into the back of a club, have my boys sending back to the back of a club, and just start punching him in the face. Now that one, that's just an airhead. That's just stupid. That's just dumb. And the concern for me comes to a point of that feels like somebody that just does stupid stuff and has bad decision making skills. Like not somebody who is young and dumb. That is just somebody who is dumb. And it don't matter if he's 24, 34, 54. He's just going to do dumb stuff. And it feels like Rashee is in that space when you, because that makes no sense. I'm already in trouble. He didn't even have one of his dudes do it. That would have made more sense. He would have one of his dudes do it. No, he went and did it himself. Like that is just foolish and stupid. So that's where my concern is. I don't think this is going to be the last time they have to deal with stuff like this because they're in for it. They're going to keep him until they can't. But I think they're going to be dealing with Rashee Rice bad decision stuff all the time because it feels like this is just him.
So the police report was posted on social media today. Like there was the story from the Dallas Morning News and then the actual police report itself, because the story was kind of confusing. It begged more questions than it had answers in it. And the police report has some of that in it too, don't get me wrong. But some of the details in this are wild, Ron. The thing that bothers me most as it pertains to Rashee Rice's future with the Chiefs is this is not a situation where like, you know, my initial thought was, hey, maybe this is a paparazzi guy, got a little too close for comfort, and Rashee Rice pops him in the face for it. That's not what happened here, dude. Rashee Rice, this guy left, according to the police report. The photographer left the club. Rashee Rice reaches out to him personally and says, hey, come on back. Himself. I want you to take pictures of my posse. I want you to come in here and get pictures of us. And the guy says, you know what? It's 1:30 in the morning. This is an opportunity. I'll go ahead and come on back. I'll get the pictures for you guys. So he comes back. His posse tells him, hey, Rashee's over there. He's in the back of the spot. And so the guy's like, all right, whatever. I'll go find Rashee. Finds Rashee Rice. This is all according to the police report, which is the other guy's story. So keep that in the back of your mind. But according to his story, he goes in there, meets him about 2:00 in the morning now. And Rashee Rice tells him to look at his phone, check these Instagram messages, and punches him in the face. Like, you have 30 minutes to think about whether or not this was the right decision, according to the timeline that was given in this story. 30 minutes.
He set it up.
Decision was, set it up. I want to punch this guy in the face so badly that I'm going to have my boys tell him where to go. I'm going to have him come over here. I'm going to show him this Instagram story, and I'm going to have him come back to this place to make all of this possible. Dude, that's not some like spur of the moment decision that you make where you're at a bar, dude's getting a little close to you, says the wrong thing at the wrong time, and you make a bad choice in a bad moment as a young kid. This is Rashee Rice actively seeking out a stupid decision, again, if this is all true, while he has multiple felonies against him pending.
Multiple people suing him.
The biggest, like, dude, he's messing up his money. Like, we've always heard the statement, right, Ron? There's a couple of things that lead to bad decisions typically for young people, especially young professional athletes, male professional athletes. It's women getting involved with the women that end up going in a bad direction, or
untied and undefeated.
It's a situation where you're doing something stupid like this. And Rashee Rice is messing with his money right now. He has made $2.5 million in his NFL career. Ron, between getting sued with the civil cases and the felonies and this, dude, he ain't gonna have any money left over. And he had $100 million contract waiting for him. If he just stayed clean the next 3 years, $100 million was coming his way via either the Chiefs or another team, because that's the going rate to pay a legitimate, at worst, number 2 wide receiver. He's messing all of that up right now. He's lost all benefit of the doubt. I don't know how much, if any, of this story is true, but the fact that we all believe it right now speaks to where we're at right now with Rashee Rice, because this is a wild story for all of us to be able to believe.
It's just unreal that, you know, we're having to have this conversation again when really this offseason has been about already what an idiot he is and causing a severe car accident on a highway in Dallas where he could have easily killed somebody because he was being so stupid and so reckless in that particular circumstance. And the fact that that just happened like a month ago and now we're already having another conversation. Like, I understand that he's a young player, like just turned 24 in April, and like he's got a lot of growing up to do, and that is obviously evident. But like, yeah, you're messing up your entire future. And we've seen lots of guys who show all this promise real early in their career and then they flame out, because if you're already causing this many issues this early in your career and at this age when you're this young, if you don't get it together fast, it's gone. Like it'll just disappear and evaporate as quickly as you showed up. You'll just disappear and fans will move on. Teams will move on. The NFL will move on and keep powering forward without you. And I don't know if he needs to get out of Dallas. I don't know if he needs to change the people that are around him right now. But the Chiefs need to step in and make sure that he is taking care of himself, because the fact that it doesn't even feel like he is taking seriously what could have been like an even more like tragic circumstance of him just being a reckless idiot in a vehicle that could possibly kill somebody. And thank God that didn't happen. But but then you add in this and it feels like he's not taking any of this seriously and he's just making himself look like a moron.
But that's what I'm saying. I think that's where I'm concerned. As I said, we got a combination where the Chiefs are not going to move off of him unless he just does something that forces their hand. And two, I think this is just him. He's like Draymond on the court. He's just going to do. Like, I'm not trying to compare him to Draymond, because Draymond doesn't do stupid stuff like this off the floor. Like, well, kind of, but just split decisions.
Kind of Martavis Bryant-y. Like the concerns that people had early on in Martavis Bryant's career, and it led to him having basically a 3-year NFL career, despite being one of the more talented receivers we've seen in the last decade. Like it feels like that right now. And I hope it doesn't end up that way, but it's hard not to make that comparison right now.
A couple things based off what you guys said. A couple things. One, like, I want to meet and see these friends, these cats around him. No one thought to themselves, ARR, whatever they call him. Like, you sure this is a good call? You sure this is a good idea? Like, we want to get him in the back. Like, hey, you think maybe I should be the one to steal him? Like, you should maybe you having me in the back. At least like, they get stupid he's stupid all the way. Like, I'm gonna be the one to text him to leave the evidence. I'm gonna be the one to hit him. I'm good. Here, y'all send it back to me. It's just foolish. And another thing you said, Serda, and I can understand where there could be some potential help, but ultimately, like, I've heard that he's got to get out of Dallas. I mean, I think this guy is nutty enough and foolish enough to find himself into bad decisions anywhere. That's like, but we got to get Kareem Hunt out of Cleveland. No, that's all right. He'll find his way in Power and Light and mess this thing up. Like, it's something with him, and I'm just like, right now, you have to mentally prepare yourself, from Clark Hunt to Andy to Veach to everybody. Like, look out, get ready. There may be a late night phone call. There might be something that rolls here, because in the like you said, man, this is like premeditated. Like you thought and planned this, knowing the situation you were already in, and didn't give a rip. And like that's to me like his give a rip. Like you said, he made $2.5 million, and it ain't even that all the way when you talk about taxes and stuff being taken out. It ain't even $2 million. And this joker, yeah, man, I'm gonna go ahead and set me up another suit. Let me go ahead and put. Is he bored? Does he need to go sell some Girl
He's
Scout
gonna be in
cookies?
debt before he even plays another NFL down because
is there
that's
a
not a
football
lot
team?
of money.
Is there a football team he can coach? Little League coach? Does he need to officiate some little like? What is going? Or is he bored? Go to the Dallas Stars game. Like what is?
I don't understand any of it. Even if it comes out that this is just like an overstatement and it didn't go down the way that the photographer said completely, like at least pieces of this have to be real. Like the messages exist. Otherwise, the police wouldn't have that in their police report. They would have to see that to confirm it, to put it into the report. So at some point, you have to imagine, based on the story that exists, that Rashee Rice messaged the guy to come back, and then there was some kind of an altercation. Being at this place, and Ron, like, I don't care what guys do, generally speaking, with their off time. Like, if you want to be at a club at 2 a.m, whatever. For the vast majority of the Chiefs, he ain't alone in this regard. There's a bunch of dudes that were probably out at some point during this offseason at 2, 3 a.m. in their hometowns. But Rashee's a specific case, dude. This is a guy that has felony cases against him. And to be going to a place, a nightclub, and being out there at 2, 3 in the morning, like, I don't typically care if you do that. But for this guy at this moment in time, when you've just got to have your head on straight for the next at least few months while you're getting through all of this stuff that is surrounding you, yeah, don't be putting yourself in that spot, man. Don't be doing that stupid stuff right now. It's just, when you look at the scouts report from a year ago now, and we didn't make much of this at the time because honestly, he was a second-round pick, and we just don't talk about the red flags as much for guys that go at that point in the draft. Bob McGinn does a really good job of talking to a bunch of different scouts and personnel directors around the league. And in his Rashee Rice write-up last year, he wrote, he has the size, speed, athletic ability, and production to be a high draft choice. At least one team, however, has removed him from their draft board because of behavioral issues. And this was the quote that has stuck with me since I've seen it again. Quote, he's talented, but not a good dude, one personnel director said. I mean, at a certain point in time, we just got to sit here and say, like, maybe that guy was right. And this is just an individual that's going to consistently make questionable decisions at best, stupid decisions at worst, that put other people in harm's way.
I'm just talking, but he goes to the next level with this thing, because it's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to go out and be out till 2 or 3 in the morning after I have all of these felonies and this trouble. But he took it up a notch by saying, yo, I'm going to invite and invent the trouble. Like, it's not like I'm out late. You know, it's like, yo, nothing good happens after 2 o'clock in the morning. No. I don't know that anything was going to happen that night until Rashee invented it. You know what I'm saying? That's the next level.
Fair point.
He created the thing. It wasn't like, oh, he was out and like Tank Dell. Tank Dell was out real late and there were gunshots that went off. There's nothing ever. No. He created the situation. I think everybody was cool at the nightclub until Rashee said, let me go find somebody that's not in the building to bring back. I'm just saying, like, that this is going to be potentially something that they're going to have to deal with. It's for a while, because he's just when it comes to decisions right now, I don't think it's an age thing. I think it's just him.
Oh, and like, I don't have a problem with anybody. If you want to go out and get hammered occasionally and stay out late with your guys, like, that's totally fine. It's the NFL offseason. Go out, have some drinks, party, have a good time. Like, that's totally fine. But it does show just like it shows his mentality that like this just recently happened with the car wreck and how serious that is and how serious that needs to be taken by him. And so for him to just be out at the club and putting himself in situations where he could possibly find himself in another negative situation. And oh, by the way, you're on the back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are the two most famous athletes in the country. Like, you play for the best team in the NFL in the most popular sport in the country. And now you are marked by news outlets because of all of this stuff, because of all the negative attention that you've brought to yourself. So like a mature person, an intelligent person would be like, hey, gotta clean up the act a little bit. We need to stay home for a while and lay low and make sure that we're focused on everything that we're going through and making sure that we're taking care of all of the things that are about to head our way, because it's going to be probably a rough season for you to deal with all the consequences of your actions or whatever. But so far, it doesn't seem like he's really interested in dealing with the consequences of his actions. And that's the most concerning thing to me about all of this.
Yeah, and you said an intelligent person would say, maybe I need to stay home and lay low. But a dumb person would even say, I'm not going to go invent this trouble. I'm not going to be the one to go and put myself out there to go have the trouble. Like me, like he's below a dumb person. Like that. I'm just saying his actions were. I don't want to call a kid dumb. His actions were below a dumb person. Like you're out in front, sort of with the, hey man, you would think some people would just lay low. Hey, let me chill. Hell, I think Frank Clark maybe kind of chilled out after he had his things. I think even Tyreek chilled out for a clean year or two after he had his things. My man said, "No, Jack, let's go." And you know what? Look, I'm serious, fellas. Do you think there is anything that can come out where we're like, you know what? All right, I see how you got there, Rashee. I see. All right. I stand corrected. I see how you got there. Like I'm just trying to figure out what could be his side of the story that would make you arrive to say, dude, but why? Like I just don't even.
The only thing, I mean, there's nothing that could get me to that place with him calling him back, right? That's the part that changes the story. I think that the part of the guy leaving and Rashee bringing him back and then directing him to a back alleyway, that's where it loses me. Like there's nothing that could get me to the place where it's like that part makes sense.
The police report is like he sucker punched him. Like he tricked him and sucker punched him. Like
and brought him back to do so.
Yes.
The thing that's hard for me to understand is what led him to the place where he felt the need to do any of that. What was this a situation where there were, hard feelings involved with the woman that maybe had mutual relations between the two of them? Was this a situation where the guy caught a picture of him in a bad situation and he had an issue with that? Was there money involved somehow? Like I don't know. It's impossible to even speculate as to what led to this level of fury and frustration from Rashee Rice. And obviously we've seen like maybe that's something that happens with him. I don't know. I can't imagine something though that would lead me to be like, yeah, it makes sense that you would call this guy back to punch him,
Yeah, I got you. To do it yourself. That's wild. All right, and now
it's so stupid.
And now they're forcing us to have to give a damn about Zay Jones. And now we're having to.
I like what Zay Jones did in Jacksonville the last couple of years when he was healthy.
What is Zay like? That's something. What is Zay Jones? What is Zay Jones? Because the thing that is a killer, because that's the immediate thing that jumps out is his body size. Because that's the killer with Rashee Rice. In terms of the receivers, outside of Justin Watson, and I mean, he is the bigger bodied receiver, the over 6 foot, 6'1", over 200 pounds, that guy. And then obviously he's got speed to go with that as well. But he is everybody else is, Hollywood Brown and Worthy and Kaderi, they're all in the 5'9" to 5'11", 165 with Worthy to the 190, 180 with Hollywood Brown. And he was like the size there that you could go out and feel comfortable with tough throws across the middle and things like that. That you lose him, there's really nobody else there. Like I said, Justin Watson. Now that's to me what jumps out with Zay Jones making sense, because Zay Jones is a bigger body receiver, which is something that they don't have. But I mean, I don't know. That's the thing is now we got to figure out, now we got to look up, and I got to watch stuff with Zay Jones and be like, talk myself into, all right, yeah, he can stay healthy for 6 games.
I mean, I think Zay Jones is fine. If you can get Zay Jones on a couple $1 million contract, I actually really like the idea of bringing in Zay Jones to be able to help out this receiving core. Like, he improves your floor. You bring him in, he's your number 3 wide receiver. You expect him to give you like 500 yards this year, and he does a pretty decent job in that role. I think he's been pretty good over the last couple of seasons for Jacksonville. Now, last year he dealt with some injuries, but the year prior, dude, he had 800 yards. Do you know what I would have done last year for just a totally capable number 2 or 3 pass catcher that could get out there and catch 65% of the balls thrown his way and produce 800 yards over the course of the season? I would have killed for that last season. He's a better version, and now he's not the same deep threat, but a better version of what Marquez Valdez-Scantling was supposed to be for the Chiefs. He can do some of the stuff that Justin Watson did in terms of just like the quick hitting stuff. He can to a degree take the top off of the defense. He's got a little bit of size. I think Zay Jones would actually be a really good addition. I'm surprised they brought him in, and I'm happy they brought him in. I think this would be a good move.
Yeah, I'd be totally fine with it. He's a cheap, cost-effective veteran who can actually win some jump balls and contested catches and things like that. Like, yeah, he was banged up last season, but the year before, like, he was pretty good that season for Jacksonville. And he was a really important part of their offense that season. Like, I don't think that Zay Jones has 850 yards in him again. But
I was going to say the year before that, when he was banged up, like he's had a little banged up issue there.
Give me 400 yards next year, and I'd be happy. For $2 million, give me 400 yards.
You understand that they have to go in this direction because Rashee just is making you. But like, it's just like, all right, you get leery of it's May 9th. Like, and a guy like that for some reason he's gotten cut, and then a guy like that is still out there on the streets. I know he had a visit with Dallas too, and now with the Chiefs. So we'll see. Like, I'm trying to think where he would fall right now, because you said you think he'd be a 3rd receiver. I guess if Rice is not available, which he won't be to start the season.
He just jumps Justin Watson.
Yeah, and then a 4th receiver whenever Rashee comes back.
Yeah. I mean, that's a nice thing to have, dude. Like, yeah. I think sometimes we think every move has to be upgrading from the best player at a respective position. Sometimes it's just like last year they brought in a safety that ended up being a really helpful piece that was like the 4th safety going into opening night, and then by the end of the year was a starter for you. So I think moves like this are actually really smart, and I think Brett Veach has gotten much better at them. Zay Jones would be a guy that improves the floor of the receiver position. And I think last year, one of the mistakes that they made was not focusing enough on the floor and focusing too much on the ceiling. They were looking for guys that could come in and, like, if they hit their best possible outcome, they'd be studs and they could come in and be like number 1 or number 2 options for you. But they didn't think about, if they don't work out, what that means for the rest of the position. And this year, I think they're trying to cover for themselves a little bit better in that regard.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I'm really curious to see how many games they're going to have him in a bigger role.
You just need him to have like a couple big catches, like here and there. Like he's not going to get 5-10 targets a game, but he's going to get like 2 targets, 3 targets a game, and you need him to just make a couple of plays. Like, that's the kind of player that he is.
Ron, I do have some other options for you though. Like, if you don't want to go this direction and you're like, okay, I think they could do better than Zay Jones.
I'm fine with it.
I've got some other options for you. So a few that I think are less likely. I'll give you my number 1 target for the rest of the offseason at wide receiver here in just a second. Look at the Washington Commanders. They just drafted a receiver in the second round. It's McCaffrey's cousin, brother, something like that. Somebody with the last name McCaffrey. So they've got McLaurin, they've got
Luke?
Dotson. Yeah, Luke. They've got McLaurin and Dotson. One of those two, if they become available, interested in both of them. Tampa Bay. I don't think they're going to trade Chris Godwin, but if they decided to, he'd be perfect in the role that Rashee Rice was in previously.
Yeah.
The Seattle Seahawks, they just drafted a wide receiver last year high. They've got Metcalf, they've got Lockett, they've got very little cap space available to them. If they wanted to trade one of those two, both would make a lot of sense here in Kansas City. I think Lockett is probably the more likely of the two to go. And he fits,
one like that.
He fits this this Zay Jones type of a mold of playing outside, helping you over the top, spreading the defense out. I think he could help you out a lot. The guy that I think is actually likely to be moved this offseason, though, is Treylon Burks. Tennessee, former first-round wide receiver. He's been a bust for them so far. It's been horrible. He has not worked out the way that they expected to. They picked him with the selection that they got in a trade for that A.J. Brown move. This did not go.
Great quarterback play that he's been able to deal with as well.
100%. This did not go the way that it did for Minnesota when they traded Stephon Diggs, and with that pick got Justin Jefferson, actually upgraded with the selection. It didn't work that way with Tennessee. However, Ronnie hasn't been utilized the way that he should have. He's a slot receiver, a pure big slot. That's how he should be used at his best. But he's been used primarily on the outside. 70% of his snaps last year came on the outside. I also think he just got in the doghouse with Mike Vrabel and was never going to get out. He's 6'2", he's 225 pounds. He does some of that manufactured touch stuff that we know that Andy Reid values from guys like this. He's a former first-round pick. I would bet Brett Veach probably liked him coming out of Arkansas in the NFL draft, and we've seen him kind of gravitate towards former first-round busts at the wide receiver position with other teams. I think there's still something there with Treylon Burks. And if the Chiefs decided to go out there and on a low-cost addition, a third-day pick, decided to trade for Treylon Burks, I think he could come in, replace some of, not all of, but some of what you're going to be missing from Rashee Rice with those over-the-middle types of targets, and he's got the size to be able to take those hits that the Chiefs currently lack at the position. I think Treylon Burks is the most likely trade option for the Chiefs that could come in and help you right away.
Yeah, I'd rather have Zay Jones in that situation, especially what you just described as, like, yeah, there could be, you could talk yourself into a hell of a ceiling, but I like the floor portion, especially with Treylon Burks, is iffy on that because you can see why they drafted him that early, but he's been a bust thus far, and you can see like. You could see him breaking out, but then there's also a part of you saying, like, could he really be just solid? Like, if you need it, could he just be solid? So that I'd
why
rather
not both?
go with.
Why not trade for Treylon Burks and sign Zay Jones?
Well, I need to know the Rice situation. Like, I mean,
well, he won't be on the roster for the first, let's assume 8 weeks of the season. So he doesn't even play into the 53 in that span. So you'd have Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Justin Watson, Zay Jones, Treylon Burks, and then you can keep one more of Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, or whoever else you want to add onto the roster.
That sounds like a lot. Oh yeah,
it does. It sounds like overkill, but I'm also like, I'm fine with them overcorrecting based off of what they went through last season. So that's totally fine. Like, but I do think that Burks is interesting because in like really, really small samples, he has shown why he was a first round pick. Like it's just been really, really small instances where you see the pop or you see him go up and make a big play. There just hasn't been enough of it because quarterback play, offense was just bad and not really set up for him to succeed. And the way
he drops the ball too, it's on him too.
Yeah, and he's had injury problems too, which his injury problems go back to college. Like that's not anything new. So like, yeah, all of that stuff is like a red flag, but also at the same time, like the Chiefs didn't ask a lot of Rashee Rice last season. Like he was running 3 routes all year, basically. Like, and I think that's the difference between what he was going through in Tennessee and the situation that he would find himself here is the Chiefs aren't going to ask him to do a lot. They're going to put him on the field and say, this is what we know you can do. go do that. Don't worry about anything else. We'll get you the ball occasionally and try to get you into space to break some tackles. Like, that's all they would ask of him.
We don't see these kinds of trades very often, but who was John Baldwin got traded for 49ers receiver. I forget what his name is now. But it was two former busts at the wide receiver position traded for one another. I wonder if the Chiefs would just consider something like Sky Moore straight up for Treylon Burks. Just a change of scenery for both of them.
AJ Jenkins.
Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah. Yep. Something like that. Or if the Titans aren't interested and they're like, hey, we've got our receiver core. We invested heavily this offseason. Cool. 4th round pick for Treylon Burks. Let's see what it looks like.
It's a damn shame how hard you two have quit on Sky Moore like this.
I mean, it's over, dude. Like, it's not gonna work. I've cut my losses. I understand I was wrong. It happens.
Especially if they sign Zay and then make another move in that room, like, this guy's probably not making this team.
Like, there's a very real chance that Sky Moore will be cut this year.
I feel like they're gonna add one, because I think they're just gonna add one, and I don't think they're gonna give up. Even it's a day 3, I don't think they're gonna give up a pick like that to bring in Burks, or a Burks and a Zay Jones. So we'll see. Whoever it is that's brought in, and a Zay Jones, they are in a better spot because they have the best coach in the game today, and in particular, the best offensive-minded coach in the game today to kind of help. And we can see he's put things together for guys far less talented than a Zay Jones and a Treylon Burks. So they have Andy Reid and obviously Patrick Mahomes with Kelsey and things to help them. So they got Andy. That's why for me, I don't know, the overkill thing is not that needed, because you got Andy, and Andy will make a lot of things work with guys.
He will, and he might be the greatest coach in the history of the NFL. And this is something that I wanted to talk about with you, right?
That's aggressive. All right.
Figured we might as well transition right into it.
Right? With Zay Jones, man, that's aggressive.
I was thinking about this as we got the news. What was this? 10 days ago now.
Let's see if Andy Reid Sky Moore work there. Let's see if he can pull that off.
Well,
the greatest.
Not even the greatest coach in the
history. You don't know how
he
didn't have magic, huh?
Yeah, it's sad. R.I.P. He's still around, just not on the Chiefs. When he signed his new contract extension for the next 6 years, as Ron is pouring one out for my guy Sky Moore,
yeah,
I thought to myself, is he going to go down as the winningest coach in NFL history? I hadn't really thought about it because I thought we were getting closer to the end than maybe what we actually are. And maybe that's some of Mike Florio just finding a way to brainwash me. He has 258 career wins right now. The coaches ahead of him are Bill Belichick, who has 302, George Halas, 318, and Don Shula with 328. So he's 70 wins behind the winningest coach in NFL history. That would mean about 12 wins per year over the next 6 seasons to pass the greatest or the winningest coach in NFL history. I think there's a pretty decent chance that he could get there, but even if he doesn't, to pass Belichick, he would have to average 10 wins each of the next 5 seasons, basically. And that's very doable for Andy Reid, given his current situation. And Bill, I think, is probably the guy that most people would say currently greatest coach in NFL history. The thing that is working against Andy in that regard is the wins. It's the wins and it's the Super Bowl rings. But Andy has basically everything else. If you want to talk about a guy that's been with multiple organizations, that's something that Andy can say that Bill can't. It didn't work for Bill with another organization. It just did with the Patriots. You want to talk about a guy that had success with multiple quarterbacks. That happened for Andy. It didn't for Bill Belichick. You want to talk about a guy that was able to adjust his philosophy to multiple eras in the NFL, better for Andy than it was for Bill. I think there's a pretty decent chance that Andy finishes with more wins than Bill Belichick when both are done coaching. And if that is the case, Ron, there will be very few. Oh, by the way, the coaching tree is the other thing that happens in regards to Andy Reid, that you cannot say that tree is rotten for Bill Belichick. there will be very few arguments in favor of Bill that are convincing to me if and when Andy Reid passes him on the wins list.
I think as I look at it now, obviously I wasn't around to see Vince Lombardi or Tom Landry or Bud Grant or Bruce Coslett or Jim Morris Sr. or Wayne Fonts. I mean,
keep it going. Keep it going. You got more. I know you got more in you.
I actually saw a lot of Wayne Fonts. I didn't see the Dave Campos, but he's the best coach I've ever seen. For me, in my 40 years on this earth, and probably 33 of them really watching and having a clue, he's the best coach I've ever seen. And I thought it was Belichick, but like we've learned from the Michael Jordan thing that you don't have to have more rings or the same amount of rings as somebody for us to understand and know that he is better or the best that we've seen. And yes, he does not have the rings right now that Belichick has, and he probably won't. He probably won't get to 6. We'll see. We'll see how long he wants to coach, but the odds are he probably doesn't get to 6. But especially, man, if he gets a 3-peat, now that's something nobody's ever done before and wins one this. Like I've said it, I think he's the best offensive mind since Bill Walsh, and he continues in what he's done through this era and change. I mean, he may be pushing that statement of you saying since Bill Walsh, or just saying the best offensive mind you've seen. And as you said, I think there's a big deal that he took over the 2 places he's been. He took over organizations that were in shambles. Obviously you remember the 2012 Chiefs, and, you got a player, killing himself in the parking lot in front of the stands, and people flying things over, and at Arrowhead in Kansas City, there's a blackout that the Hunt family had to pay for. It was in a rough place. They had the number 1 pick, and the number 1 quarterback in the draft was either E.J. Manuel, Geno Smith. Like, they were in a rough spot. They were 11-5 the very first year that he got there, and they made the playoffs, like with that group. And then in Philly, he took over a team in shambles with his first job. And almost immediately, within a couple of years, the Eagles were one of the premier teams in the NFC and in the league. And he went to 5 NFC championship games there, right? He's been to 6 straight here with the Chiefs. Like, it's insane what he has done. He's been and won, obviously, the 3 Super Bowls with the Chiefs, but he actually got Donovan McNabb to another Super Bowl, and he went up against the Patriots and Tom Brady and crew and lost that one. And that's something Belichick doesn't have that level of success with other quarterbacks. Like, his level of success was really, really high, but it's with one guy. His level of success outside of Tom is not. And I'll tell you, what Bill Belichick has done the last several years, I think has hurt his legacy big time. My man stepped out and said, yeah, man, I know we got a Super Bowl here. I'm going to sit Malcolm Butler, my best corner, because of some big chest thing I want to get into. And I'm going to lose a Super Bowl because of it. And I've got plenty of time in my face to see that I should change it. And I'm going to lose Super Bowl. And then what he did to Mac Jones by putting Joe Judge and that guy who wears that stupid
Matt Patricia
pencil with this, I know his name, but I don't want to call him by his name. He wears that stupid pencil in his ear when his paper's laminated. That guy, as their offensive staff, that's a special teams coach and a defensive coordinator who were both failed head coaches, and he had them in charge of his young quarterback who had showed promise a year before. Like, no, man, they were just. His legacy to me has been hit. We don't have moments like that from Andy, and I don't think we'll have moments like that from Andy. They win. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, who he gets, and then we finally saw, let him get something special. And as soon as he has got something special, he has been the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl every year. And he's won it 3 times. So I think he's the best coach already I've ever seen.
We're seeing that the ceiling is there for Andy the way that it was for Bill. The floor is actually higher with Andy than it was with Bill. They're both, like, you want to talk about the best defensive mind of, at a minimum, this generation, it's Bill Belichick. The best offensive mind of this generation, it's Andy Reid. None of this is like to diminish what Bill has done, in my opinion. Like, Bill is unbelievable, unassailable. But if we're going to have the conversation and we're going down the question of like who's going to be remembered from this era, because they both started basically at the same time with their respective first real teams that we remember them with, whether it was Philly for Andy or Bill with the Patriots. Since 2000, essentially, who's going to be remembered as the better coach during that run? I always just assumed it would be Bill because he had such a huge head start over Andy. And now as we get closer to the end for Andy and we appear to be at the end for Bill, another 6 years for Andy would put him at the exact same age that Bill Belichick is right now. If he coaches those 6 years, I think Andy will be remembered as the better coach because I think Ron, you said you're not sure that he's going to be able to reach him in Super Bowls. I think there's a decent chance he does, or at least gets to 5. You know, like he'll be right there when it comes to Super Bowl rings. And when it comes to wins, would likely pass him at that point in time. I think we're getting to the place where it's going to be a legitimate conversation, not just for Chiefs fans or for Patriots fans, but nationally. About 3 years from now, it will start to become a mainstream conversation of Andy Reid is actually the guy that ended up being the best coach of this generation.
I'm fine with calling Andy Reid the best coach of all time. Like I can understand why people would say Belichick and why people would get offended by the idea that Andy has already surpassed Belichick or something like that. But I totally agree with the idea that this last couple of years with Belichick really hurts his legacy because he was drowning. Like, just had absolutely no business making personnel decisions. And that was before they even let Brady go. Like, you could tell that he had no business being the guy who was in charge of their draft classes year after year, but he was able to keep them afloat because Brady was excellent and he would always get the most out of his defensive players, even with inferior talent and all of that stuff, which is why he is the greatest defensive mind of all time in the NFL. But there's a strong case to be made that Andy Reid, especially his end at Philadelphia, where he was like, I am doing too many things. I can't be the guy who is in charge of everything. And he learned from that and came to Kansas City. And that's why he hasn't really been that here. And now he's got Veach, who, after a couple of tough years, really figured out the draft and has done an excellent job the last few seasons. Like, there's a strong case to be made that Andy Reid, in terms of offensive play calling and style in the NFL, has had more impact than any coach in the modern NFL. Like, the amount of impact that he has had on offensive football and the amount of times that we've seen Andy Reid over and over again just adapt based on what is available to him and be excellent at it is pretty unparalleled. Like, we see, like, Kyle Shanahan's an excellent offensive-minded coach, but Shanahan kind of just does what Shanahan does. Like, I think Sean McVay has done a better job in recent years of, like, adapting and trying to do different things instead of just doing what he does. But Andy Reid has always been kind of a chameleon when it comes to that, like, based off of what he has available to him, and then mixing in, like, the college concepts and stuff at a time where people were like, oh, that'll never work in the league. Andy Reid was like, oh, I can make something with that. Like he's just done and had more impact on the offensive side of the ball than almost any other coach in the modern era.
I know this conversation would be a lot different if old D Ford lined up on side, and you take a Super Bowl from Belichick, and now you may add one to Andy. Like, they could be sitting here 5-4 right now with that situation. But you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. All right, fellas, we are out.